Hey everyone, welcome back to Land Investing Online. Come unlock your potential freedom through land investing. Here at Land Investing Online, we teach students how to profitably buy and sell vacant land. This is the simplest, least competitive, and most profitable sector of real estate. For more information, visit landinvestingonline.com. We have a free Discord with tons of successful investors in it, including Ron and myself. Come learn from the best. Please subscribe and like this video, Apple Podcast, Spotify, whatever you guys are listening on. It drives this business forward and it means a lot to Ron and I. We'd appreciate that. As always, guys, I'm Daniel Apke, joined again by my brother and business partner, Ron Apke. Welcome back, Ron.
Hey Dan, good to be here.
Before we get into the topic, how much money can you make from one deal? And we're going to talk about how much we make on average, plus some of the bigger deals that we see our members doing and ourselves doing as well. But before we get into that, let's go over a question from one of our members. Question is, for smaller lots, I am very worried about perk test. I was thinking about getting perk test done before every property I buy under 1 acre due to some things that have happened in the past. Would this be something you would consider doing? Yep.
Yeah, this is we just had a coaching call literally that we hung up with in the last hour, and we kind of started talking about this conversation as he was choosing areas to send, acreages to send. So it's just something you got to think of because not every property is going to be buildable. Not every property is going to be able to have a traditional septic system, which is a real concern. Um, would I do that as far as if that's your niche? That could be a niche in itself, Dan. It's buying those half-acre parcels and flipping them and getting perk tests and all this and having relationships where you have someone doing 2, 3 perk tests every week. You might be able to get them done a lot faster with that uh, septic guy. But is it something I would do? Absolutely not. I think it's a ton of work and I think there's a lot of risk. What if those perk tests start failing? Then you're out $2,000 or something like that. You have to be in really, really cheap if you want to do this. Have people walk like you're not going to know 100% if something's going to fail, but have your drone person walk the property, which I think feel like it's beating a dead horse, and as much as we say drone and stuff like that, but have your drone guy walk it, see if it's rocky, see if it's wet. All those signs are signs that it could potentially fail a perk test.
Yeah, that's first signs. But if that's something you want to do because of something, I don't think it's a bad idea. Because then on the sell side, it's just going to speed that up. Because we've been in some counties before where everyone's requesting a perk test. I mean, it happens, especially on the East Coast. Um, so I mean, $2,000 is a lot, isn't it, to get just the health department to go out there and do a soil test? It should only be a few hundred, Ron, right?
No, I don't think it's a few hundred, to be honest with you. I don't know what it is. I'm guessing it's over $1,000. We've never done a perk test. We've had buyers on the back end do perk test on our land. We've only had one fail, I believe. Two. I think we've had two fail in the past. But yeah, I think it's more than a couple hundred in.
Well, yeah, so get that quote. I'm curious, and we'll have more information. I'm going to reach out to a couple. I'll put that on my to-do list, actually. I want to get quotes across a couple of different states on different septic and perk test, what they cost, because that would make this a game changer, I think, if it was a few hundred versus a few thousand. Um, but no, I think it's a good idea because then on the sell side, well, I don't think it's a good idea necessarily, but if that's your niche, it could be a good idea. And then on the sell side, you have that. So you're not going to have someone that needs a perk. That perk test is going to be done. You're going to send them the copy of the health records or the health permit, whatever. Send them a copy, and then that will be pretty much an improvement in its own, right, Ron?
Yeah. One more thing to keep in mind, guys, like not only can that perk test on the front end fail, that buyer or that seller could back out at any moment.
Yeah.
So that there goes your money as well. So I'm very cautious with that stuff, just spending money before owning something. If you own it and then get one, great, but that wouldn't be smart because then if you get a failed one, then you're just um, out the land
There's no
essentially. But
reason. Yeah, there's no reason to do this
there's a lot of risk. There's more risk than I would be okay with, Dan, personally.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It might be a feel thing too. You have to talk to the buyer, make sure they're still 100% committed, or the talk to the seller, make sure they're still 100% committed and whatnot. But why, real quick, that we didn't touch on. So they said under 1 acre, guys. The reason they're asking this is because under 1 acre are small lots, right? If we have a 20-acre lot, you can most likely put a permit somewhere on that 20 acres. That is a lot of land. It's not all going to be rocky and wet or whatever the situation is. But if you have zero point 0.5 acres or zero point 0.6 acres and, there's a big gully and there's a lot of water or rocks or whatever, there's a lot less room for air. And that's why they say on these smaller acres, 20 acres is not as big of a deal, 10 acres, whatnot. 5 acres, you start to get a little bit more septic questions, I think, in general. But yeah, that's all I have for that. Let's get into the show, guys. How much money can you make from one deal? Let's um let's explain kind of that. I did want to talk on this because we're getting a lot of wholesalers and real estate people viewing our channel and asking a lot of questions. I did want to briefly explain, guys, we're actually buying the land. We are not wholesaling or, assigning the contracts. We are buying the land in our own name. We're sending out mail to specific targeted counties with prices and offers on them for a percentage of what it is worth. And then we're actually buying the land. And I wanted to touch on that before we get into the profit side of things, because I know assignment profits and wholesaling gets a little bit different. But this is what we're buying it for and what we're selling it for. We're talking about here, just to clarify that. Do you have anything on that? What I just touched, and then we're going to talk about around our average profit per deal, and get into that a little bit.
No, I think that's a good point because we have a lot of wholesalers, people like that, who see our numbers and they're kind of blown away with our margins and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Opposed to, I mean, even house flippers, like they're buying stuff at 80% of what it's worth after cleanup or whatever, after flipping it. Just the price that we're buying stuff for is crazy low compared to a lot of these. The margins are a lot better. But like Dan said, we are putting our money out there and actually purchasing the property, getting it in our name. And these closings happen in about 2 weeks. So it's flipping money fast. Yeah, we're buying it.
So let's talk about average profit per deal, and then we'll get into the big juicy stuff on how much we're seeing some members and some land friends doing. But let's talk about average. Like what can I expect average on profit per deal? So talk about average sale price, average profit, things like that.
So for us personally, like we send some cheaper mail, and I'm not saying cheap like we're trying to buy for 1,000, sell for 5,000. Like no, we're not doing that. But we'll buy some for 7,000, sell it for 16 to 18, somewhere in there, even 15. Like it's still a good, healthy $7,000, $8,000 margin. So those obviously pull you down. And then on the high end, we have stuff that is whatever, buy for 50,000, sell for 150,000, buy for 100,000, sell for 200,000. And what it balances out to with our business and how we're sending mail, it balances out anywhere from $18,000 to $25,000 per deal for the whole year. Closer probably to 20, I'd say,
Of
Dan.
profit.
I think last year we were around, huh?
Of profit.
Profit, correct. Yeah, so that's our profit. So if we buy for 10,000, we're selling for 30. That's basically, and it balances out. We have a lot of bigger ones than that. We have a lot of smaller ones, and then the mid-tier ones that are actually around our average is buy for 20, sell for 42, buy for 18, sell for 40, stuff like that. Yeah, I think if you send enough mail, I really do think unless you're really targeting really expensive land or really cheap land, I think that's where it's going to come out to, Dan, 15 to 25,000.
Yeah, and I have just looking at our CRM. I'm not as involved in the daily as much anymore, the day-to-day upkeep with a lot of stuff, but I look through the CRM quite a bit and see the numbers keep getting bigger and bigger. It seems like, I mean, to have a six-figure deal a couple years ago, Ron, we'd be like, "Oh my gosh, we have a six-figure deal." And now it's like we have 5 of them in our CRM for sale right now. Maybe more than that, honestly, and a bunch we're buying as well. So that as you guys gain experience and you guys, everyone says add a zero to it, make the deal bigger, add a zero to it. So take that $100,000 property, add a zero to it, that's $1 million property. So in terms of just scaling up, and we have noticed, we had a sales rep as well, and we have another one starting on in August at some point. And as the salesperson gets more and more experience and you get more and more trust with them, you can start blasting out $500,000, $1 million offers out there and just know they're going to work those things because they're paid off commission and those are going to get taken care of. It's just a really cool thing. And in our future, I know that there's going to be bigger and bigger deals coming our way. And it's cool to see that number continue to rise, Ron. And we see that with our members as well as they gain more experience, right?
Yeah. And we've done some big deals like buying for 200, selling for 400, 500. But like we know there's a next level to this. Hiring a really good staff and having a good salesperson, someone who really wants to work for you and for themselves. is going to be invaluable. And I think that becomes, unless, or you can do it yourself, obviously. If you want to go target $800,000 properties, but it's not going to be a phone call and they're going to send you a purchase agreement, Dan. Like, that's just not how it's going to be. It's going to be a process of, a lot of times, a lot of those have a ton of people on the deed also. So you got to get a bunch of signatures, and there's just a lot of backwork stuff. And that it's just going to be a process. It's going to take a few weeks at minimum, I would think, to kind of get the purchase agreement, get the process started, and then buying something, that lining up funding for that, getting realtor opinions, because you're going to need to use a realtor at that price. It's a lot of stuff, but having a good person on staff like that is extremely valuable, Dan.
Yeah, and then having good transaction coordinator, or, just taking the things to the next level and knowing it's in a good place. That all comes down, guys. We talk about systems and processes a lot. This To do these things at scale take a lot of systems and processes. But so we talked when we first started. I do want to touch one more on this. I mentioned we started smaller numbers and smaller profit. Now we're getting bigger and bigger. But like I remember, and we probably wouldn't touch these deals anymore. Maybe we would if they were good, but we bought some for $1,000, $3,000, and sold for, eight, nine, 10. We bought our first deal ever. We bought for 6,000, sold for 15.5, I believe. So there was a ton of those smaller ones. And then I remember our first really big one, or what I thought at the time was really big. We bought for, think, like 50 or something, and sold for 130, and we were like mind
Mm-hmm.
blown. We're like, wow, we have a six-figure profit. And it's cool to see the progress, and you guys will go through these same stages. If you guys are newer, you'll see that progress, and that, that buy for 10, sell for 25, those keep the bills paid, those keep your pockets fat. But then, and they keep the consistency. But then when that buy for 100 hits and you have that listed for 280K or whatever it is, like, those are exciting. And you'll see more and more of that as you guys gain trust in the process and trust in yourselves. Um,
Yeah.
but let's talk about the cycle. You touched on that, Ron. I have that on my list to talk about. The cycle of these deals obviously is different than if I'm buying for 5 and selling for 15 or something like that. If you're buying for 500,000 instead of 5,000, the cycle is going to look a lot different. Let's talk about that, Ron.
Yeah, I mean, if you're buying for 500, on the buy side, it's just you need to do your due diligence. You need to get realtors involved. Like, you cannot skip steps. Think about all the due diligence you've done combined on all your cheap little deals. And like, sometimes you need realtors, sometimes you need drones, sometimes this, that. You need to do everything for these. Make sure you're getting all your due diligence from the county correct and all that. But it's going to take longer. And then you're going to have the actual acquisition part, where you're going to have to sell the seller on about yourself, about your company, that you can actually come up with $500,000, because that offer we send to people is saying $500,000 cash. So then you become almost, you form, maybe it's one person, maybe it's a group of friends or something like that that can come up with $500,000 to pay for this. Maybe it's us. But that's the main thing. Like, the funding part is very big, because most people don't have $500,000 in their bank account. It's going to take more to actually get the seller on board, because it's a significant amount of money. But at the end of the day, if you can fulfill what you're promising, and that's worth 800, 900, $1.2 million, you're going to make the seller happy at the end of the day if you're getting them $500,000 within 2, 3, 4 weeks. Um,
Yeah.
on the sell side, you're going to use a realtor. Not if you're selling for 800, $900,000, there's not a huge buyer pool for this. There just aren't. So you need to make sure you're using a realtor with a buyer's list. It's extremely important. Expect these. I think average sell price time, Daniel, is going to be 6 months. I would say you might have some that are 3, 4 months, but you're not just going to have a buyer come up tomorrow and just say, "Here's my $800,000 offer. I have the cash ready. Let's close in 10 days," or something like that. It's just not going to happen. But it just extends, Dan. Honestly, it's bigger numbers. Everything. Everyone's going to be more careful with moving forward. But at the end of the day, if you're transparent and everything, I think the deals can happen for sure. And I've seen them happen.
Yeah. It's really kind of reminds me of a big commercial property versus, a big commercial rental, like, lease versus a residential lease. That's kind of what it reminds me of. Like, it's going to be more work up front, but the returns are a lot better. And I just think, first off, like, the negotiation cycle. You're not necessarily going to send that $500,000 offer and get that back. You might have sent a $400,000 offer. He might come back wanting 650. You guys negotiate for 2 3 weeks. This is a lot of money, guys. Negotiation on these bigger deals is more relevant. You guys might negotiate for 2 weeks. He's skeptical. You can't, like Ron said, you can't come up with 500 grand. You say, listen, I'll put $10,000 in earnest once you get all your due diligence or something. I'll put $5,000 in earnest to secure this. Like, you guys have to negotiate and be creative, because these people aren't dumb. They know their land. They know how powerful $500,000 cash is as well. So you guys just need to make sure, negotiate. These might be longer. If a normal negotiation period is 2 weeks for residential, and I'm just making that number up, this might be 2 months. It's just, there's a lot more. They're not just going to send you a $500,000 purchase agreement. Like, it's much different than that, guys.
Yep. I was gonna say something. That's a good point, Dan. The earnest money. I was gonna say that. So don't, if you guys are a member or something like that, don't just use our template for a purchase agreement and be like, you need to sign this, seller. Like, John, you need to sign this. This is my purchase agreement. This is my offer. Even if he scratches out a price or something like that, the terms are something that are gonna have to be negotiable at this price. Like Daniel said, have escrow, send $10,000 of escrow to a title company, have a 10-day due diligence period where you can pull out. And that gives you a way out too, is that due diligence. And it also gives the seller a peace of mind. Like, this guy's for real. He put $10,000 down. He's got some money, obviously. Maybe he wants a bank statement. So you have to put together some bank statements for that. There's a variety of things that are going to legitimize you. And that's the biggest thing. Like, you need to legitimize yourself to the seller to get them to believe that the deal can actually happen.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point, Ron.
Dan, can
So
we go into one thing?
yeah,
I want to go into mindset, because I think this is really important on this. I know you're big on this, Dan. Just like that growth mindset. Like, a lot of people listening, maybe they already turned it off by now. Hopefully you guys are still listening. If you are, great. Like, that mindset of offering $50,000 versus $500, $600, $700,000 is a big thing. And like, a lot of people, like, I can't do a deal that size. Like, it just doesn't make sense. That's too much money. I can't find that much money. You want to go into that a little bit, Dan?
yeah, I think, guys, this isn't going to happen. You're not going to, this most likely won't happen your first mailer getting a $500,000 piece of property. It's going to take experience, and it's going to take proof of concept. You're going to have to trust yourself with the ability. And to do that, you're going to need some proof of concept, and you're going to need to have, in my opinion, probably a few deals done in your back pocket to feel good about this, to negotiate that big of a deal. But I think just naturally, like, if you guys are staying consistent, see what you, and you guys are involved, honestly, I think naturally you'll know that this is possible. You'll see the deals we have, the deals our members have. There's no limits to this business. Like, there's just not. This is real estate. You can go buy a $10 million property if you want and sell it for 15 million. I guarantee they're out there. You just got to find them. So the mindset thing, I think, just comes with time, honestly, Ron, just like with consistent mailing and consistent deals. It's going to be hard to jump in and say day one, I want to buy a $500,000 property. I'm not saying you can't do it. You probably can if you really set your mind to it, but you're probably going to send out a bunch of mail and get some 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, $50,000 properties back too. I think with time, Ron, honestly, like time, negotiation practice, and just knowing that it can be done. Like, it's there. Like, why couldn't it be done? There's just no reason not to. It works in every single market that we've tried, Ron. It's not like there's limits to this. There's no limits at all.
Yep. I think that, like, it is like, you can just keep adding zeros. There is land out there that people will take a significant amount of money, and they probably know it's under market value, honestly. But yeah, so to get funding at this level, guys, I think that's something you guys, like, there has to be some kind of, you guys have to have some kind of background with yourselves. If you bring me, and the biggest thing with you, if you don't have $500,000, which a lot of people do not just have $500,000 in the bank. If you're reaching out to me for funding or something like that, that needs to be able to sell for 8 to 1.1, I think, Dan. 800 the low, because these realtors are going to take a ton of fees. And then we just need some balance. I know how long the process is, stuff like that, because it is a ton of money, $500,000. And you have to bring realtor opinions, multiple realtor opinions, comps, show what the realtors have done in the past. But it's possible, guys. Like, even if it is your first deal and it's like a killer deal, I'll probably want the margin to be a little better, like buy for 500, sell for 1.2, 1.3. But if you're more experienced and stuff, like, you buy it, If you can find deals all day, buying for 500, selling for 900,000. And there's less competition at the top at those numbers than I really do. Not many people are
Definitely.
trying to acquire five, six, seven, $800,000 properties.
No, yeah, that's a really good point. And I think by this stage that Ron's talking about, bringing comps and stuff, guys, bring a portfolio. I need a
Yep.
booklet of this, like all the information. Send me a Google Drive with everything in it, organized. Yeah, this is 500 grand. This isn't $5,000 little property. This is 500 grand. Have an execution plan. Have a realtor listed. Have his little bio page. How much has he sold and bought in that area? What does he think it's going to sell for? How many times has he been to the property? What's the timber value? Like all the information depending on that, commercial zoning, like everything. You guys need everything at this stage that Ron's talking about. And then you come to us and you say, listen, my realtor, I had 3 realtors there. 2 of them walked it. Both said, 900 to 1.1 mil. One said 800 on the low end, 5 month sell time, whatever. And we'll look at it with our own eyes too. But get creative with this. Come to us, give us all the information. Get creative though on the funding side. It doesn't all need to come from one person. You guys can do some sort of like syndication type of deal where you go to 10 investors in the group and everyone drops 50K or
Yep.
something like that, or everyone drops, or you see how much, maybe you get 5 at 100,000 or 2 at 250. Like it lessens the risk for everyone, especially if you're new. So if you're new and have a good $500,000 offer, or that you feel really good about under contract, don't shy away from it. If it's a good deal, it's a good deal, and put your mind to it. And I think you could make it happen.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. And yeah, I think some people get purchase agreements back, Dan. That's what I was going to say. And they get so excited, especially when it's this much. They look at a couple of comps, like slow down, take a breath, do the due diligence at this price point. Like
Yeah.
Daniel said, you need to do everything. Take a breath. I think I got a really good deal. There's no access there. It's off a highway. Like you can't actually, no driveways allowed being put there. Just little things that people just get really excited about. And then they kind of realize like, oh, okay. Don't bring that to funders because that's going to scare us away at that, especially at that price point. But yeah, I don't have
Yeah.
much more to add on that aspect, Dan.
Also, the last thing I wanted to say, we typically tell you guys not to do any work before a purchase agreement. This would be a little bit different situation. You have to know you have a serious buyer. You're negotiating with them a little bit.
Seller,
Guys, I don't expect someone to sell $1 million uh, purchase agreement without negotiating back and forth. They might have a realtor, bring a realtor in on the loop, like whatever they need you want to make it easy on both sides, to be honest, but like you got to negotiate with them. This is a lot more expensive and you're not going to just have a purchase agreement before you do any work, to be honest. So I did want to mention that, but that's all I have, guys. Thank you for joining. To get started and to unlock your potential freedom, visit landinvestingonline.com to join our free Discord where Ron and I are involved. Come in, say hi to Ron and I, say hi to all the other investors. We're very excited to have you there. Please like and subscribe this video if you guys got anything out of it. YouTube channel, Spotify, whatever you guys are listening on. Subscribe and like. It really means a lot to us. Other than that, we'll see you guys next episode.
thanks,
Thank you for
guys.
joining.